Joann's Fabric, a name that symbolized sewing, crafting, and DIY dreams across America. So for decades, it was the go-to destination for sewists and crafters alike. But behind the colorful owls, the fabric sales, and crafty charm lies a dramatic story of humble beginnings, explosive growth, controversial decisions, and ultimately a disastrous end. So, in today's video, we're unraveling the truth story behind Joann's Fabric, which means the good, the bad, and the very, very ugly. So in this video, I'm going to be taking you through decades. So I'm going to start when it all started, and that would be the humble beginnings of the 1940s and 50s. I'm going to also tell you about the rise to national success that was happening during the 1960s, 1980s, the good times and the brand's peak, which happened during the 1990s and early 2000s. And then, if you guys don't know, the cracks begin to show in the mid 2000s to the 2010s. And then y'all know the controversy and the customer backlash that happened in late 2000s to the early 2020s, when 2020 is when they had the height of the pandemic impact and the decline happened pretty much between 2020 and now. And then we'll close it out with the collapse and the bankruptcy that just was announced like the beginning of this year. So let's go ahead and start off by talking about the humble beginnings that happened during the 1940s and 1950s. So Joann's story began in 1943 amid the wartime America when two German immigrant families came together in Cleveland, Ohio, with a modest idea, and that idea was to open a small fabric store called the Cleveland Fabric Store. For most of you guys who don't know, it was not Joann's first. It was Cleveland Fabric Store. Do your research, look that up. So after that, they still renamed it to Joann's Fabric, which combined daughters' name Joann and Jacqueline Ann. Their little shop captured a community spirit. So what they did was they started offering affordable materials for the homemakers' needs who was doing some sewing back then, okay? So it quickly became a local favorite at that time. So this is during the rise to the national success, which happened during the 1960s and 1980s. So from the 1960s onward, Joann Fabrics rapidly expanded where they was riding a wave of like DIY popularity and economic boom, because during that time, a lot of things was going on. A lot of the women were in the house doing like housework and stuff like that. So Joann stores appeared in cities nationwide. So by the 1970s and 80s, Joann's Fabric became the iconic place where millions learned to sew, knit, craft, quilt, all those things. And basically back then they had like clever marketing experiences. They also had classes like community classes and unbeatable fabric prices. That's probably back when fabric was like 70 cents per yard compared to now at $12.99. But we're not talking about that. Do your research. If you know, you know. Joann's was not just a store back then. It was a household name, thriving and beloved by many generations during that time, because every female was sewing, cooking, baking, and doing somebody's laundry. All right. Which brings me to the good times and the brand peaks that happened in 1990 to the early 2000s. So during this time, the 90s marked Joann's what I'm going to call the golden age. Okay. So the company was innovative with large, brighter superstores. That's where you see all those signs that Joann's became bright green at this time. All right. So they basically decided to rebrand. And when I'm saying rebrand, that's not the Joann, A-N-D. We're still talking about Joann, the two sisters, but they started expanding their inventory. That's when they started with the 40% off coupon, which became legendary, by the way, but we don't see that nowadays. And Joann's Fabric wasn't just popular, it became a cultural phenomenon, which was a true brand that fostered creativity nationwide. So Everything seemed perfect during this time, but the craft empire's success masked deeply rooted problems that lurked behind the surface that many of you did not know, which what brings me to how the cracks began to show, and that happened during the mid 2000s to 2010. So, when Joann's was entering the early 2000s, or I should say mid 2000s, Joann's fabric started facing intense competition. Now, y'all know who this intense competition was. If you think about it, online giant that came on site during this time was Amazon. And Amazon was like the competition at that time because they were like the discount retailers such as Walmart and Michaels. They also came on board and they were selling, fabrics and all that good stuff as well. So the once innovative chain, which was Joann's, they struggled with outdated store designs, inventory issues at this time. They started rising prices. So the prices that we see now, they was raising them back in the mid 2000s and kept going up and up and up. But at this time, they were going up by the cents, like 10 cents, to where you didn't even notice it was going up by 10 cents because back then we were not paying attention. But we're paying attention now, by the way. Customers grew frustrated during this time by confusing sales tactic, poor customer service experience. Now, don't act like you guys don't know about the poor customer service experience that we used to face early 2000s. I mean, 2010 is when I really started sewing, so I did face a little bit of that. Not as much as now, but just a little bit. And also back then, it lackluster management decisions as well. So behind the scenes, internal struggles and leadership change just hinted at a deeper instability for Joann's during this time. This is where, you had the controversy going on. You had the customer backlash, which hits the late 2010 into when the pandemic hit in March 2020. Okay. So by this time, the situation worsened when Joann's began attracting controversy. What happened was customers started complaining loudly online about inflation. And, what they were doing was, of course, what they're doing now. They inflated the original price, misleading sales tactic, and declining product quality. Okay. So basically, the quality of a lot of the products and fabrics that they sold was not of high quality. It was a poor quality equals China quality. No offense to my China people. All right. So employees started speaking out openly about how bad Joann's was understaffed, how bad the wages were per hour. It was really, really low wages at this time, and how Joann had morale that declined. Okay, so the morale decline is like one of the big pictures that happened during this time. So at this point, Joann's public image took a severe hit at this time, and loyal customers, like many of us, okay, they began shopping elsewhere. And I'm not going to lie, I began shopping a lot away from Joann's outside of just doing patterns. During this time, I was doing a lot of shopping for Ankara Fabrics. I was also shopping at Cali Fabrics. I was also shopping at Girl Charlie. This is before the whole mood situation, but I was shopping elsewhere during this time as well, because at that point, a lot of us was frustrated by what we saw as deceptive business practices, just to be 100% honest with you. But then, the pandemic hit March 2020. And this is when Joann's really, really, really declined, even though, they were making money during this time because, we couldn't do anything during COVID-19. But I'm not going to say what we could be doing. A lot of people did do some things and got prego. But that's besides the point. What we could only do is stay in our house and sew at this point. So a lot of us was making masks, and that was a big thing that happened for Joann's. A lot of people getting fabric to sell masks during this time. So the COVID-19 pandemic initially boosted the crafting and sewing community during this time, but Joann's fabric couldn't capitalize sustainably during this time as well. And the reason why is because they had supply chain issues, problems, inconsistency on pricing, ongoing customer dissatisfaction, worsened their financial struggles during this time. So despite the belief that surges in sales during that mass situation, like I just mentioned, management misstepped and poor digital strategies meant that Joann's couldn't completely effectively do any type of nibbling with the online rivals, which would be your Amazon, your Walmart, your Michaels, your Hobby Lobby, and so forth, right? So by that time, store closures multiplied significantly, which we were not aware of some of the Joann's that closed during this period because it was not mentioned at this time, like it is now. It's everywhere. We know that all 850 stores are closing, which brings me to the collapse and the bankruptcy issue that I've been talking about for the last few weeks. It's been about a month since they announced that all stores are going to be closing. So by this time, the financial reality that Joann's is closing, like, come on, we all heard it in the last couple of weeks. And that's because Joann Fabrics filed for bankruptcy protection, which closed hundreds of stores nationwide. Liquidators came in and did what they did and all that stuff. Now, Joann's keep promising us all that they having a sale up to 50% off. I did a video for that. I'll put it up here so you're able to see that. And y'all know when they do that, we already know customers like myself found discounts misleading and very disappointing. Okay. So what they did was, like I said, the liquidators came in, the CFO, CEO. I have a video for that on telling you guys how much they make a month. They bought in some high-paid consultants who stepped in, receiving enormous monthly fees, which I covered that already, even as the company crumbled into pieces. So ultimately, major creditors took control. They dismantled the beloved fabric store for sure, piece by piece. Like what you are paying when you go inside Joann's is basically MSRP with no coupons. Okay. When you go to the car dealership, you see MSRP, but they give you some form of a discount, whether it's a military discount or multiple car discount or whatever. But the liquidators are not doing that. They want to make as much money as possible. That's what they do when it's a bankruptcy. Liquidators feeds off of bankruptcy. So just know that when you go inside Joann's. Which brings me to my lesson learned for this and conclude this video, that Joann's fabric story serves as a cautionary tale of what happened when beloved brands like Joann's lose sight of their customers. That's basically why Joann failed, okay? Joann's also failed to innovate. So what they did was they let corporate mismanagement prevail in their offense. So I would say from humble Cleveland beginnings to nationwide success and finally an epic downfall, Joann Fabrics leaves behind a complex legacy, okay? Many of us would cherish the memories of creativity and community, but yet it sparked a reminder of the cost of corporate negligence and customer dissatisfaction that happened for Joann's. I hate to see them go, but I know it's only going to be a matter of time before they shut their doors as well. Okay. So let me know in the comment section below, what's your take on the Joann fabric story? Did you see this coming, or were you shocked by their downfall when you first heard the filing of the first bankruptcy, the second bankruptcy, the stores closing, 350 stores, and then the next 3 days later, all 850 stores is closing? I'd love to hear your memories and thoughts in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this deep dive on from humble beginnings to the rise and fall of Joann's fabric store, which we are going to miss. All right. So thank you so much for watching. If this video was educational, inspiring, and fun, you guys know what to do. Give your girl a like on this video. Share this video with a friend who can use this information. Comment in the comment section below and let me know What's your take on this Joann's fabric stories from humble beginnings, the rise and fall of Joann? Do what's free, and that's subscribe. And also, don't forget to hit the notification bell for more sewing stories and updates on Joann's and any and everything else in between. Well, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. Until next time, keep sewing.